Start of a brand new working week. Thank you for dropping in. We're going to check out all the main stories from around Thailand. Really appreciate your subscriptions, your support, the super chats on Saturday. Much appreciated, and thank you for the good views over the weekend. Now, I actually had a few stories left over on Saturday that I simply didn't get to, and we'll start with those. From Thai PBS World, this was actually published on Friday night. Pita bids farewell to Parliament, calls for cabinet reshuffle. And the former Move Forward Party leader, Pita Limjareonrat, bade farewell to Parliament on Thursday night, saying that the debate may be the last of his political career before the party is dissolved by the Constitutional Court. I suspect his farewell tour is going to go longer than shares, but this is the start. Making his closing speech at the end of the two-day general debate against the government, Pita, currently the advisory chairman for the Move Forward Party, talked about the party's victory in the May 14 general election, that's last year, while missing out on the formation of the government. And Pita said he does not regret the fact that his party won the election and managed to cobble together 312 votes in Parliament against the Pitas 314, but ended up being pushed into opposition, which, he added, is an important role in a democratic system. And Pita said, "I will never regret that this debate may be the last of my political career. There's no secret about it. Everybody knows my political career is hanging by a thread, but I'm ready to walk away as a victor." And he said the likelihood of the dissolution of the Move Forward Party will not prevent Thailand from moving towards change and will hasten the pace of the party's advance towards victory. Just all this reminded me of a pop culture quote from the movie Star Wars back in 1977, when the old wizard Obi-Wan Kenobi was fighting his young apprentice gone wrong called Darth Vader, and he made this statement: "If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you could possibly imagine." And that did come to pass. I think with Pita and the Move Forward Party, whether they're pushed out or dissolved, this is all part of a long and perhaps tortuous lesson for them. We've also got the Senate elections coming up in May, and I think that's going to have a big bearing on the future of these reformist parties being able to form government in the future in Thailand. Now, in amongst everything else on Saturday, I also didn't get to this story, so I'll quickly allude to it. Some good news if you are looking for insurance and you're over 70 or even 80 here in Thailand. I don't know if it refers to foreigners or if it perhaps would help with that ticklish point of health insurance for foreigners over the age of 70, but I'll read it and perhaps a bit of hope. AIA Thailand CEO promises insurance products catering to 80-plus senior citizens. Now, you could read that to mean just 80 people, but I think it's referring to people over the age of 80. And AIA Thailand say they're going to prioritise insurance products for senior citizens aged over 80. And speaking at his first press conference since being appointed CEO 2 years ago, he said AIA Thailand's focus on elder groups catered to the country as a super ageing society where people are more concerned about living happily in both wealth and health as they age. And said they're going to be coming up with customised products tailored to the lifestyle of the elderly, and they'd be readily available soon. Now, whether they'll be readily available to expats as well as locals, I'm not sure, but a story I'll keep my eye on, because a lot of people always ask about what they're going to be doing for health insurance once they get over the age of, say, 75 or, indeed, as this story refers to, perhaps even 80. Moving on to our next story, we go to the patianews.com. Thai police seize assets valued at 30 million baht from alleged big biker drug gang. And the Narcotics Control Board on April the 5th announced the follow-up seizure of assets valued at 30 million baht from an alleged big bike drug gang arrested in Chiang Mai province. And they arrested 6 suspects who were allegedly caught transporting nearly 1.9 million methamphetamine pills hidden in the sidecars of their big bikes. Well, not so much the sidecars, it's sort of in the boxes that were strapped to the side of their bikes. They also worked with the Royal Thai Army to raid 13 locations in 6 provinces, including Chonburi, Phitsanulok, Nakhon Sawan, Chiang Rai, Phichit and Kampang Phet, And they seized land, buildings, vehicles, gold jewellery, brand name goods and passbooks valued at more than 22 million baht. And when combined with the value of the first batch of seized assets, that rose to 30 million baht. And then even wider, the NCB announced the results of its operation to cut the wings of small drug dealers, which was carried out in the eastern region of Thailand from December the 1st to April the 3rd. A total of 329 targets were raided in 8 provinces, resulting in the arrest of over 278 suspects. Well, heading from northern Thailand and the ongoing war on drugs here in this country, heading down to Samui and a visit by the Prime Minister over the weekend. From Thai PBS World, PM Seta greenlights cruise ship terminal project on Samui Island. Now, a bit of context on this one. Of course, Samui has this ongoing problem with really very few ways of getting to it. It's in the Gulf of Thailand. You either have to take a ferry trip from Don Sak in Suratani, or you have to take Bangkok Airways. A couple of international flights getting in there now, but very, very few. So a bit of a monopoly. This would be a bit of a game changer. And the Prime Minister, Seta Thavisin, gave his approval, this is yesterday, to a cruise ship terminal project on Samui, which will be able to accommodate up to 120 cruise ships annually and generate about 8 billion baht in revenue. So just over 2 a week. And they're formulating a detailed plan for the project for submission to the Cabinet this year, so it's not happening next week. The Prime Minister visited Samui yesterday to inspect the proposed site for the terminal and to discuss the main problems on the island, like waste management. And Seta said Samui is one of the 10 locations in Asia visited by cruise ships, but a number of them do not visit the island because it doesn't have an appropriately large terminal. And this has prompted the idea of building a terminal. And the project is estimated to cost about 12 billion baht. Yeah, well, that certainly would be a game changer for the island. Well, how's tourism doing generally in Thailand this year? Pattaya News has compiled some of the figures at thepattianews.com. 9 million international tourists visit Thailand in the first quarter of 2024, according to the Thai Tourism Ministry, China #1. And apparently that's a 44% increase from the same period last year. Well, the same period last year, things were just starting to pick up again. And the top 5 nationalities: Chinese 1.7 million, Malaysians 1.16 million, Russians 622,000, South Koreans 558,000, and Indians 472,000. And European and Oceanian tourists, particularly from the United Kingdom, has increased significantly during the past week of the Easter holidays. And Thailand received a total of 644,000 foreign tourists. That's a minor decrease, but it translates to an average of 92,000 foreign tourists arriving in the country each day. So if you want to take your shoes and socks off, what does 92,000 tourists a day arriving in Thailand mean? Well, back in 2019, there was an average of 118,000 foreign tourists arriving each day. That was the highest number of tourists we had pre-COVID. So 92,000 for the start of the year, that is a pretty good start. Mind you, we've got another 6 months coming up now after Songkran, which we usually some people call the low season, other people call the wet season. Will we be able to maintain the momentum? But still, 92,000 per day, an average, is a hell of a lot of tourists arriving in the country. And last week there was a 44% increase and 5% increase in tourists from the UK and Malaysia respectively, while the tourists from India, Russia and China dropped a little bit respectively. Heading from the big picture of tourism to a nasty little accident for a British man, Cowsod English on their Facebook page reporting Pattaya rescuers were called in early Sunday morning to assist a foreign man who was critically injured by a spike on the fence at the gate of his home, had a deep wound in his stomach. And we go to thepattianews.com to find out a bit more. Their headline: intoxicated British man too drunk to unlock his gate impales himself climbing his fence at a Pattaya home. And it happened at his residence in Banglamung in Chonburi. And Michael G, a 65-year-old British national, they found stuck on the fence. One of the fence posts, shaped as an arrowhead, had pierced his belly. causing a wound approximately 5 to 6 inches deep. Nasty. And the rescuers skillfully lifted Mr. Michael off the railing, administered first aid and promptly transported him to a nearby hospital. His condition was critical due to the severity of the injury. According to local media reports, Mr. Michael initially attempted to open the gate to his house, but was too inebriated to do so. Subsequently, he decided to jump over the fence to get inside, slipped and tragically impaled himself on its top. Well, Mr. Michael G's in good hands now, and I suppose the bottom line on that one is don't go climbing over a fence with pointy fence posts if you're drunk. And now time to have a very quick look at what's happening with the air pollution in northern Thailand. This brought to you by Kev in Thailand. And we go to this story from Thai PBS World. Pilot described severity of smoke problem from forest fires in Chiang Mai. And in his Captain Faisal Facebook page on Saturday, the pilot wrote that he landed his aircraft at Chiang Mai airport about 9 a.m. And as soon as the door of the plane was opened, the first thing that struck his nostrils was the smell of smoke. He wrote that visibility was reduced to about 2 kilometres and he only saw the runway at a height of 200 feet, and the Doi Suthep mountain was totally shrouded in smoke. And in a second post, in response to several questions about how the smoke will affect flights approaching Chiang Mai, Captain Faisal responded that thick smoke reduces visibility and pilots who are not trained in handling such a situation will not be able to land, even though the airport is equipped with a system to guide the pilots in the landing. And we head to this story from Nation. Summer storms forecast for 21 Thai provinces today amid hot weather. And the north will be the hottest part of the country with maximum temperatures forecast of 43 degrees. And Bangkok will have a maximum temperature around 39 degrees. And whilst all regions of the country are experiencing high temperatures, heavy rains are forecast for some areas. And the southern winds covering the lower northeastern, lower central and eastern regions would bring thunderstorms and strong gusts of wind to some places. And the public should be aware of the thunderstorms according to the department. So these summer storms, they sort of appear out of nowhere, and you just need to keep an eye on those rising, towering cumulonimbus clouds to know if there's going to be some coming. Hard to predict, and it's really on your local radar that you'll see them approaching. Just a very, very quick look at the IQAir.com. Chiang Mai today, again, number one, listed as the worst city in the world as far as air pollution is concerned. And we go to the map there and, yeah, pretty bad air pollution. Those dark purple areas are, as I've said before, listed as hazardous. And certainly you wouldn't want to be living around there at the moment. Now, of course, I'm showing you these numbers sometimes on a daily basis at this time of the year. Gives you a pretty bad impression of Chiang Mai. There are 8 months when the weather in Chiang Mai is largely spectacular. And Jett, who I worked with for a couple of years, a fine guy and indeed a great reporter, probably one of the best here in Thailand when it comes to the English language. He's done a report about Chiang Mai, admittedly from his point of view as a person who now speculates with real estate and tries to help people with their real estate dreams here in Thailand. And he's given, well, a sort of a positive spin on all this, and I've put a link to that video, very well produced video, very thorough and detailed, with Jett in the description below, so please check that out. There's plenty of islands in southern Thailand, and it looks like we might have one more coming online where tourists will be able to visit again. And Thai PBS World reporting that Panga's Tachai Island to reopen to tourists soon. And officials at the Mukor Similand National Park are considering reopening Tachai Island to controlled tourist visits after it was closed in 2016 for rehabilitation of the ecological system. And the governor said that Tachai used to be a popular tourist attraction, but uncontrolled tourist visits had resulted in the degradation of the island's environment and ecological system. And new management will ensure that its environment, ecological system and natural resources will not be damaged by tourism again. For instance, he said the number of tourists allowed to visit each day will be controlled. Boats will only be allowed to drop anchor where they'll not harm the corals. Garbage will be managed effectively, and areas will be defined in which tourists will be permitted to swim, dive or snorkel. And Tachai Island, a small island about 50 kilometres north of the Similan Islands in the Andaman Sea. Here we go. The big white circle is the Similan Islands off the coast of Pangar. The red arrow up the top there, that is this Tachai Island, so sort of quite remote. The red circle is the area which we call Khao Lak, and the little blue arrow down the bottom is where I am. So one more island added to your Similan's visit. Let's hope they can manage it and, well, control the numbers of tourists. Doesn't work particularly well in Maya Bay, but at least it's open and they are trying to ensure that there is as little damage to the environment as possible. That's all I've got for today's quick whip around some of the main Thai stories. Hopefully you're a bit more up to date. Please subscribe to the channel and we do look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.